and let's talk about Nate Schmidt. There are reports, and again, these are reports. These have not been verbally confirmed by the player, that Nate Schmidt is once out of Vancouver. And from what I understand from listening to Rick Dollywall as an example, friend of the podcast, he hasn't heard anybody say that Dollywall has not heard anyone. His wording is that he hasn't heard anyone say that Schmidt wants to stay in Vancouver. So the reports are out there that basically from David Magnotta, one name you'll see on the list is Vancouver's Nate Schmidt. Doesn't sound like things have worked out, and we're told he's on the block. Although Benning has denied it. Maybe we'll start with Tyler here. Do you buy it? Do you not buy it? What are you?
No, I don't. Although I think that's something the Canucks should be considering. I mean, they didn't get the Nate Schmidt they were expecting to see this past season, but over the last year and a half, leaks out of the Canucks organization and these rumors, I mean, in a lot of cases have turned out to be wildly incorrect. So I just kind of shrug at that.
Yeah, I think when Dollywell's trying to clarify like specific wording on he hasn't heard that he wants to stay as opposed to that he wants out, I think that means that there's a willingness to explore trade options, but he still would stay if they can't find something.
My question is, okay, so these are the ifs, right? If you wanted to go, why? Is it the locker room? Is it management? Is it that he just? It's hard to really pinpoint or figure out exactly what's going on. If that is the case, especially with the year that they had last year, obviously with COVID and everything, we all know it, that it was a shitty year for the players. Now, outside of that, I immediately my first thought is the dressing room. Just because, okay, yeah, he's been to Vancouver before. We all know Vancouver's beautiful, great place to live for players. Lifestyle's there. So then it's either management or the locker room. Those are the only two things that I can really think of. And if it's a locker room, man, that's I don't know. He seems like a very personable guy, and he seems like he really just wants to be part of the team and is a team player. So if it is a locker room, that's a shame. But there's also the management that's involved that's been in question for a long time too. So to me, it's one of those two things that if he wants to move out, that is the reason.
Yeah, I mean, the locker room, that just seems like a huge stretch to me. If he just doesn't feel like he's a good fit in terms of roster construction, he does, he looks around at the rest of the defense group and he doesn't feel like he has a chance at succeeding or at least playing at a level that he played at earlier in his career. Then I could see him looking at it and thinking maybe there's a better fit with another team. But the whole locker room thing, I mean, like, who's saying that? Like, where is that coming from? That's
all speculation on my part.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody in the locker room telling me anything.
Yeah.
Those are just kind of like my thought process and steps of when people want out. Why?
I mean, it's always a possibility.
Yeah. You also look at where he's at in his career. He started out in Washington, played partial 2 seasons there, and then in his 2 full seasons with Washington, they were good teams and made the playoffs. Went to Vegas, they were good, and they had a couple deep runs. Then he goes to Vancouver, and it's an absolute gong show season. I think that has a lot to do with it. I think how everything went with him being the new guy, not having a proper training camp, not having proper ways to really socialize with his teammates, and everything that you can tell from Nate Schmidt, he feels like a full-blown, like, outgoing guy who needs to be out socializing and being with other people. And then you had the COVID outbreak and everything. I think it was just I think Devin's right in the fact that it probably is a little bit locker room, but I think there's so many extenuating circumstances within there that it's not something that you can, especially if you don't know any of the information, like don't know for sure, that I feel like just saying locker room, I think doesn't do it justice. But I know what Devin's trying to say in terms of like trying to figure out where things are. But I think if you just look at everything, I think it's a little bit of going from competitive teams to a team that wasn't competitive, going from normal socializing to not being able to do it, and then having to go through the COVID outbreak as well. I think it's a perfect storm of stuff that would really bother someone that is as outgoing and personable as Nate Schmidt.
Because Nate Schmidt
then. Oh, sorry, Kevin. I'm just going to jump into to like counteract what Sean was saying. The reason, this is all speculation, right? Mm-hmm. It's all speculation. Us talking about it, what's ever coming out, it's all speculation. So speculating that it could be the room might be the case. And there's been no inkling, there's been no inclination, or what word am I thinking of?
Inclination.
Thank you. That locker room is divided, or it's a bad locker room whatsoever. I mean, what you're listing off, Sean, is things that are a part of not normal times, right? And so he has to understand, like, he doesn't seem like a stupid guy, that if those things are bothering him, that things will get better. Vancouver Canucks were great last year. Realistically, they had a good season overall, and they got into the bubble and they played very well. And so it on ice stuff, I don't know if that's the thing. He was averaging 20 minutes this past season, as the seasons before he was 21, 22 the year before in Vegas. So So within that context, who knows what he's thinking? But overall, it's all speculation.
And that's why I'm saying I think it's a perfect storm of things where it's not necessarily that he didn't like his time here, but it's just you throw in all that information, and to me it seems like he'd be open to a change a lot more and then as opposed to saying like what JT Miller says, like, no, I want to stay.
I also think, like, just what I was going to say too. I mean, with all the bubble, we never. I mean, Jeff Patterson has talked about this as well, as he doesn't feel like he has the same rapport with the players that he's had in years past. I mean, he's never really met Niels Höglander, as an example, and he's never had the chance to really physically meet Nate Schmidt. I would imagine if it was like non-COVID times, Nate Schmidt would be doing a lot of charity events. We'd probably be seeing a lot of public appearances from Nate Schmidt. And I just think that he hasn't had the opportunity to be himself. So I do agree with Sean on that. And I guess also, though, I'm a little hesitant. I got to be honest, I'm a little hesitant about this as well, because it just, sometimes I feel like people are trying to create content for the sake of content. Maybe I'll flip this. If I would I be surprised if Benning has offered Nate Schmidt in trades? No, I wouldn't be. I could see that making sense. But I also, like, part of me, and then would I be surprised if Nate Schmidt looks, and there's situations maybe that we don't know that he wants out? Maybe, but part of me is just like, I'm not sure I'm trusting that I believe it. Maybe it's the fact that I have a diploma now, but my spidey senses are not tingling that this makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah, although, when you have Rick Dhaliwal saying, like, none of his sources are denying it or pouring cold water on it, and it's only Jim Benning denying it, there is a bit of smoke there. But I don't know. Like I said earlier, there's been a lot of stuff thrown out on the Twitter from media people, speculating this and that about the Canucks that hasn't turned out to be true. Most notably, change of general manager or coach. I mean, neither of those things occurred. Everybody thought the goalie coach was going to be gone. He's back. So, I just have to shrug my shoulders at that.
Yeah, Miller, the JT Miller trade request too. That was another one that there were reports out of, and
very true. Now, from the Canucks' perspective, he's just making a shade under $6 million. Do you want a guy who is half in, half out, a part of your core, being a part of that defensive core, making an impression on Quinn Hughes and your young defensemen? Personally, if that was me, once again, these are all ifs, right? But if I was the Canucks, I don't know if I'd want that big of a cap hit having that much impact on the cap and on the team. I'm not saying he's not a good teammate, because everything shows that he is. But don't you want somebody who wants to be here, like like Miller said?
Absolutely.
Oh, we have a visitor.
That is a ding that I'm right.
Is your brunch arrived there, Devin?
Skip the dishes.
Oh,
that was me. That was me.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask I'll just add that is Nate Schmidt? Is Nate Schmidt one of the defensemen you're protecting in the expansion draft?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Who has him in? Who has Vancouver? Is that?
I believe that is Tyler.
No, I don't believe I have.
No, I think that might be Chris.
Yeah.
I don't know, Sean. Sean, if you heard the question, is Nate Schmidt a defenseman you're protecting in the expansion draft?
Who else are they protecting?
Yeah,
that's the thing, right?
If I had to guess, they'd be protecting Myers. I mean, they have to anyways, don't they?
Myers, no. The Canucks are not required to protect anyone with the current clauses. With that, I think part of the Schmidt talk is like, what can the Canucks do to try and move players, like shuffle deck pieces around in before the expansion draft. But with the Canucks, like, they've got right now they have 3 defensemen that meet criteria that meet the criteria for exposure, and that is Tyler Myers, Nate Schmidt, and Madison Bowie. So they need to find someone. They need to sign a defenseman beforehand or make a trade beforehand to get that, so they can expose Madison Bowie, and then go from there. So right now, they've got. When you look at who they've got signed next year, they don't have Hughes signed yet. They've got Myers, they've got Schmidt, and that's it for proven NHL defensemen that are currently under contract. So I think at this point, if all things are the same going into the expansion draft, they will be.